Hey, what's happening, guys? It is super cold out here today. Right on, Acme. First one out there. I love it. Hey, happy Christmas, everybody. Yeah, so here in the Pacific Northwest, especially in my area where I live, we're not used to having snow all the time. And being 27 degrees out right now, it's about, I don't know, 15 degrees colder than anything that anybody is used to around here. So anything under freezing or pretty much under 40 degrees is like too cold. We can deal with the rain. I mean, we can deal with 9 months of rain, but the moment that it gets below freezing, everybody starts crashing their cars. I did store bought food again today, only because I wasn't able to drive. I drove my wife into work, so I don't have a car, and I didn't bring my lunch, so I couldn't drive home. And so yeah, I did get store bought food today, but it's chilly and it's really good, and it's what you need today on a hot day, right? So let's talk a little bit about Evergrande. You know, I mean, here a few months ago, it looked like Evergrande was going to fail, that they were going to go completely under and drag down the real estate market, the properties over in China. It was going to take it down with it. But excuses, you're right. Um, but it turns out it looks like they are back up in operation again. In fact, the article that I leave down in the description for you guys is saying that they have like, I think they're like up to 80% back in operation again, which is going to really changed the perception of what a lot of people had out there, because they thought maybe, like, I mean, it was something that we had talked about as well, that there could be this possible contagion coming from the Evergrande failure, but it didn't actually completely fail, not as of yet anyway. I mean, I guess it still could, but but as it looks like right now, they're back in operation again, and they're going to start completing some of these projects. So right, too big to fail, exactly. um, so we kind of knew, or at least a lot of people were under the assumption that the government was going to step back in and bail that company out, because they just really, you know, with China, their whole economy is based off of their property. Like, if their property prices and real estate market starts to crumble, then that's going to take down the entire economy with it. And you know, a lot of people were saying that it just simply wasn't going to happen. Like, they weren't going to allow it. And well, it kind of seems to be the case right now. You know, one of the other things that you think about is, like, when this debt, these corporate bonds or the commercial paper, and when these things start to go down in price, this is where a lot of people say this is the blood in the streets. This is where you dive in. This is where you want to pick up these undervalued, underappreciated, depressed assets. But really, I mean, when it comes to Evergrande, do you really want to take that kind of chance? I mean, when they're that overly indebted and have so many projects that are on a thread, like teetering on a thread on whether or not they're going to be able to be completed and stuff. It really questions, like, whether or not you're going to want to jump into that kind of thing. But, that's where the money is made, right? Yeah, no thanks. I wouldn't either. Merry Christmas. Nothing better than a hot cup of soup on a warm day. That is so true. This is really hitting the spot, too. Who is backing up all those Evergrande loans? Who's buying that debt? Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of that debt ends up in, like, I would assume, like, pension funds would probably end up with a lot of that debt. You know, um, This is something that we have talked about in the past. Even if like a company doesn't have a credit rating that is like acceptable for a pension fund to buy, with the ideas of collateralized loan obligations, they can take these really crappy companies that really, don't have a credit rating that's worthy, and they can combine those loans that they give to these corporations and collateralize that into a security called the collateralized loan obligation. Once they do that, then they can chop it up into different tranches, and then that different tranches will be giving a better credit rating than what's actually in this collateralized loan obligation itself. This better credit rating then gives the ability for pension funds to buy into it. So typically a corporation that would never ever end up in the portfolio of a pension fund can end up in one if you purchase it through a collateralized loan obligation. So who would buy that stuff? I mean, who knows? Anybody could end up with it, I guess. The Big Short was an excellent movie. Yes, it was. It was an excellent movie. Really described the problems with the mortgage-backed securities and the credit default swaps. And, mortgage-backed securities, if you're not familiar with those, it's really kind of simple to think about. If you can imagine a box with a bunch of mortgages in it, and that box being sold off to an investor, that's like the mortgage-backed security. And the credit default swap is like an insurance policy that goes with it. Back during the great financial crisis, they sold way more credit default swaps than mortgage-backed securities to back them. So when the mortgage market started to crumble, all these insurance policies basically kicked in and started dragging down the whole system with it. When do you think the markets end their bull run? That's an interesting question, because when you think about just the United States, it seems like it should just be ending any time now. But you also got to think there's a world out there that is really nervous about what's happening. And where's the safest place to go to? When we discuss it, we don't feel like we're safe when we talk about the dollar, but the rest of the world feels safe when it comes to buying US treasuries and being in the US dollar. And then if you're going to be in the US dollar, do you really want to be like in the dollar itself, or do you want to be in dollar denominated assets like the US stock exchange or US real estate, something like that? So that's really like the big question. Is the market's going to turn? Well, if it's a global like downturn that takes place, you might find where the rest of the world wants to get into the United States, causing those assets to continue to go up as they're trying to find a place to hide. The last time I sat in the park talking to myself, I got arrested. It's funny because people were walking by, they give me the strangest looks. It's so funny. But then again, we're here in Astoria along the riverfront, so it's not too uncommon for people to just see somebody just babbling to themselves down here. So they just kind of look and just keep going. Mhm. Bank bail-in soon, you think? I mean, I don't know what sector, what part of the economy is going to fall that would cause the bank bail-ins to take place. Are they going to go right to the banks, like the big institutions, when they start to fail? Or are they going to save like construction companies like they did in China when they start to drag the whole economy down? What sector of the economy is going to drag it down? That would be the question. The great financial crisis, it's sparked off in the mortgage markets. It could happen in the corporate debt market. If that was to take place, that could be some serious hell to take place. One of the things that I think about is all the stock buybacks that have been taking place over the last few years. And if these corporations all of a sudden find themselves in an area or in a position in which that the interest rates are rising, they can no longer roll their old debts into new debts. They got to pay those old debts off, and if they don't have the money on hand, they're going to start selling stock, and we can see the stock market crashing after that, as they go to, well, I don't know about crashing, but we can see a downturn taking place from that point on. Here in Indiana, the construction companies are offering the houses in very cheap prices because they have a fear that maybe people will not think to buy a house after this Evergrande news. I don't think we're going to have a situation anytime in the near future where people are not going to be in a huge demand for houses. I just feel like the fact that houses are having such a struggle with getting completion. Sorry guys, I'm having a hard time talking. It's really cold. But the completion of houses is such a problem right now that getting new inventory into the market of homes is just not, it's not going to come from like the new construction market in a fashion in which that would be like quick. You know what I mean? It's going to be a slow, cumbersome way, especially with all the logistical nightmares taking place. And then on top of it, it doesn't seem like that wave of foreclosures that everybody was expecting to come once the moratoriums had ended. That idea that there was going to be this massive foreclosures and there was just going to be a ton of homes on the market, it just didn't seem to come. Cool, a super chat. Who sent that to me? Jaws, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're the best. Will you live event next month be available on YouTube someday? Thank you for all you do. Yeah, so I'm going to the Rebel Capitalist event here in like, it's a little over a week away. I mean, we're like right there. I believe George is going to, George Gammon's going to record it. It's not something that I'm going to be able to record and post onto my YouTube channel because, it's an event that's proprietary, for him, and so that he can, promote what he's got going on there. But I would imagine at some point in the future, after the event has taken place, that you'd be able to find the footage online somewhere. I mean, I'm sure George will post it somewhere. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Guys, I tell you, I have been working on this thing for a few weeks now, trying to come up with something that I'm going to say, and I'm nervous. I've gone through it a few times. Like, I'm going to tell my story, and I'm going to talk about the lumber market and the breakdown of the supply chain and kind of some of the things I see going into the future. I mean, really, if you watch my channel all the time, it's probably going to be nothing new as far as information goes if you're at the Rebel Capitalist event. I mean, other than maybe learning a little bit about my back history. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell my story and talk about the lumber market and, and meet all the wonderful people down there. I'm so looking forward to it. I can't wait. So, oops, here we go. Got another super chat from Joe. Thank you so much, Joe. Lunch is on me. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. I do. Thank you for the super chat, man. You guys are awesome. All right. A big news came in today. Indian markets, a big bank named RBL Bank has serious liquidity issues. A few days before, same thing has happened with other banks named Yes Bank, and that the time market crashed badly. Yeah, India has been running through a liquidity issue for quite a few years. I mean, I've done videos on it in the past. I haven't really kept up on India's economy, other than having read a few articles in the past on it. But yeah, they're running into some liquidity issues as well going on over there. I also hear that they are, for the first time, going to go into depopulation, right? Like, not in, sorry guys, it's so cold. They had like this overwhelming population. I guess that's going to start decreasing soon. The replacement, like, the, 2.1 children to replace the population has fallen below that 2%, or that 2 mark in India. What am I trying to say here? Anyway, over the next couple of generations, we're going to have less people being born in India, which is kind of weird to think about. And that'll, in my opinion, will drag the economy down as well. What do you think would be the best advice to give young adults coming just out of high school and entering the workforce? If I had any advice that I would give to somebody who's really young right now, it was don't mess around waiting to start your investments. If you can get anything that collects an interest and you can compound that interest, time is your friend. I'm 45 years old and I just don't have the time to do that anymore. Like, I have to take major risks in order to try and come up with more money that I can live on as I head towards retirement. I mean, being 45 years old with no retirement, no savings, no anything going on, it's scary as hell, guys. I mean, that is a scary position to be in. So if I was anybody, if I was to go back and start something again, it would have been to find something like that with an interest-bearing account that I could contribute to that would, continue to grow. with that being said, you also have to take on the risk of the third party with that. So, you may end up losing it all. I mean, we're going to have pension funds here in a little bit who may end up going bankrupt, and that could be the position that you're in. So you have to be very cautious of where it is that you plan on sticking your money for the rest of your life, especially, if you're just going to blindly do it. I mean, yeah, it's scary. Now, me personally, I like to save in silver and Bitcoin. Those are my two places that I like to save. I also, been holding on to cash, the little that I can get right now, hoping to be able to buy into, an asset when the prices come down. It's basically the dry powder that you have to have. You also have to have a little bit of an emergency fund, and you have to have quick access to cash in order to have these things, as far as an emergency fund and the dry powder. So holding cash is not a bad thing. I mean, a lot of people they say cash is trash and you shouldn't own a single dollar or paper dollar. I don't agree with that. I think that you should have a decent amount that you could use when the time is right, and you can't do that if you're already locked up in something else. Dirt. I am buying ag exempt land and leasing it out. Well, that's probably a good way to go about it. I would imagine agriculture is probably going to be doing pretty well. Lots of love from the UK. Hope you're doing well, dude. Thank you very much, Malcolm. I am doing well, and I hope you're doing well as well. You're coming to George Gammon Houston Rebel Capitalist event. Yes, I am. I'm one of the speakers at that. Go and check it out, rebelcapitalist.com or rebelcapitalistlive.com. Go and look at the list of speakers. I'm one of them. Yes, I am. So, yeah, you can go down there and hear me tell my story for 40 minutes. Ask me a few questions. Oh, sweet. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Like I said, I'm nervous, but I was invited there. I didn't ask to go, and um, I'm so thankful that I get this opportunity. That I don't want to screw it up, but is you're gonna get me, man. That's what you get when I go down there. When I get up on stage and I start speaking, it's gonna be from the heart, and I'm gonna give it to you. That's what I get. Oh, is private equity effed with raising rates? I don't know if it's effed. I mean, I would imagine like raising rates could be a good thing. It's going to be hard to handle when it first takes place, but you got to think all of a sudden you can get a return on your money, on your savings, and I mean that's something that people have never had before. And I mean, of course, interest rates would have to go a long ways in order to get a decent return on your savings. But for like a young person right now who's never understood the idea of saving, like to have interest rates go up and to take on that idea that you don't have to invest in something to get a return, that you could actually just hold your money in a bank, that is such a far off concept to people. It's just like not even in the realms of possibilities. And like I said, with the interest rates as low as they are, it's really not. But what if we lived I mean, we've gone through 40 years of continual interest rate drops. Imagine just a handful of years of continual interest rates rising. I mean, can you imagine? Oh. Yes, like you, Johnny, you need to start an investment that pays an interest. Yeah, don't ignore the 401k. It finally, just a couple of months ago, I got my 401k actually fired up with my employer. So I was just going to give it a couple of months, see how the program worked before I go in there and start trying to beef it up or adding more to it to see how much I can get the employer to match. But yeah, 401k with an employer match is awesome way to go. And like I said, I just started it, so it's not like it's going to end up being something fantastic for me. I mean, I guess if I could stick it out 20 years, it might turn into a little something. But oh, please hang the dice on the microphone in Texas. You're not the first one to tell me that. Um, I thought about bringing the dice down there. Yeah, build a fire. You're freezing. I am freezing. My chili is already cold. Like it's like cold. It's like no heat left to it at all. What do you think about buying lumber for building new house in the next 2 months? Will look like. This is going to be an interesting one because right now we have the prices really moving up, and there was a lot of mill curtailments taking place a couple of months ago. We did reports on it here on this channel. I think it was in fact July that some of the major producers were talking about curtailments. And I wish I could go and find some articles like where they had mentioned it or talked about it, but I cannot find anything that mentions these curtailments. I found them in emails that I get, and I also heard it from some of the vendors that I talked to, but I don't have any like, a link to send you guys. But these mills, when it hits, I mean, a lot of people like think that lumber should be priced around 300, 400, 500 per thousand, but you got to understand like a lot of these mill operators, like especially up in the British Columbia area, and this is something I'm going to be talking about down at the Rebel Capitalist event. These British Columbia mills, I mean, they are high cost producers, and so anything under 500 per thousand, and these guys are really not profiting. So they're going to start curtailing development. They're going to ease back on the inventories that are available out there. Basically, supply and demand. If you can lower the supply and increase the demand, you can get the prices to go back up. Well, while they were doing this, they also got hit with flooding. Then the tariffs kicked in. Stumpage fees went up. There was a lot of stuff that a lot of people I don't think were quite anticipating coming into the future at this time, which would cause these prices to move up as high as they have. Especially when you have like hurricanes and different things that are like driving the prices up there. There's a lot of building taking place down in the southern parts of the country. This combination of events, like I didn't expect the lumber prices to be up over 1,000 per thousand for any length of time. But that seems to be the case right now. And we still have another little over 2 weeks before this contract closes. So we don't know exactly where the January contract is going to be. But I can tell you from personal experience out there that some lumber is coming up in short supply. Like we are having difficulty sourcing out particular lengths or just an individual unit that may come up in short supply. For the most part, everything's still somewhat available. And there was a time when we would order a truckload of plywood and they told us, yeah, it's going to be 2 months before you see it. We ordered a truck of plywood last week and we're getting it, well, probably not today because the roads are so messed up, but maybe tomorrow. So the plywood availability was like, it basically came back online and it's expensive. It's really expensive right now. And I could only assume that as these the high priced lumber and merchandise starts entering into the system, starts coming into all the way to the retail. Like if it just bounced off of 1,100 per thousand, it came back down to like 700 or 800 per thousand. Well, then most of the lumber in the system would be under that 1,000 per thousand mark. But the longer it sits up here over 1,000 per thousand, the more lumber is getting into the system that's expensive, and that's going to keep those prices elevated, until the demand wears off and the supply increases. Once it gets up to 1,000 per thousand in the lumber futures, these mills want to make money, right? I mean, that's where they want to make the money is when it's at 1,000 per thousand. I mean, so they're going to pump out a lot of lumber when it comes to this price. At some point, it's going to fill, and there's going to be a glut again, just like we had before. This is a whipsawing effect that's taken place. I mean, it's going to happen for the next few years as oversupply, undersupply takes place. Anyway, let's see, what else are you guys talking about? So is lumber a supply or demand issue? It's both. It's both at the time that it's happening. Like when there is low inventory out there, then it's a demand issue. When they oversupply it, then it's a supply issue. It's hard to find where it is that you need to be in a constant, how does a mill know exactly how much to run when you got other mills who are running too? So you're just, you're trying to take advantage of the time that you are. As time goes on here, I mean, there's going to be more mills. Like something that had taken place a couple of years ago is that they know, like these high cost producers up in the British Columbia area, they know that they're running out. They're running out of lumber up there, and that the forestry industry up there is not going to come back for another 30 or 40 years. So they got to bail out of there. Like they know they have to go. And they're setting up shop down in the southern part of the United States where there's a glut of trees. So 20 years ago, all these property owners down there heard about this lumber projection that was going to come into the future where there's going to be this huge demand for lumber. They all started planting this particular pine down there in that region, and now those pine trees are ready to be harvested. Now, something to think about is that a lot of these mills, when they go to modernize these mills, they want a particular size tree, because they don't want to deal with all these different size trees. They want one size tree to run through the system as quickly as possible. And so all these trees down there, they're prime. They're prime for these mills to run them. And if they let those trees go too long, like they're like, man, I don't like the price that I'm getting for these trees, I'm going to hold off and wait until, the price of the trees go up. These logs may end up getting to the point where the mills no longer want them because they're oversized. In fact, it was a bad story about this poor landowner down there who had planted trees long before anybody else, and he sat on them for forever. And now he's got these huge trees down there, and he's thinking, man, I'm in the money. And he went to the mill, and the mill says, sorry, man, those things are just far too big for us. We'll buy them off you, but we're going to buy them for pulp. Right? I mean, this poor dude is just like, oh, man, he is out of the game, right? And he had been sitting on his trees thinking he had a ton of money just waiting there, for him. And that just simply wasn't the case anymore. So these high-cost producers, they're setting up shop. They're, where do fishermen fish? They fish where the fish are, and that's where they're headed to. They're headed to where the logs are. And these guys are going to set up shop down there, and in a few years, they're going to be pumping out a lot of lumber out of there. Who knows what that's going to do for the industry? How much, supply will that bring in? Bitcoin is for saving, not investing. You are absolutely right, because Bitcoin is a complete speculation. There is no investment. Well, you can invest with Bitcoin if you give it to a third party who's going to give you an interest rate on it. You can give you a return. But Bitcoin is nothing more than a speculative asset that you intend on selling to the greater fool at some point in the future. Now, I am a buyer of Bitcoin, and I believe that Bitcoin will have a future going, at some point. It's going to be worth a hell of a lot more than it is today. I don't know what that'll be. I don't know how long it'll take, but I do have that belief that it's going to happen. And so, yeah, I am a buyer of Bitcoin, and I understand that it is not an investment, but a speculative purchase, just like my silver is. Same exactly, same thing with the dollars. I mean, I am into speculative assets. I'm just now starting to get into investments, but like I said, I'm 45 years old. I mean, how good is an interest-bearing account going to do for me if I only have just a handful of years to collect an interest with it? So, pretty bullish on ETH. Yeah, I would be too. I would be bullish on Bitcoin, Ethereum. I personally like Litecoin myself, only because I followed Charlie Lee when, a few years back. I really liked his attitude about, cryptocurrencies, especially when it came to Bitcoin. So I bought into some Litecoin. I again, complete speculative purchase, but that's the horse I jumped on there a while back. But lately, as of the last few years, I've pretty much just been sticking to buying Bitcoin and nothing else. I mean, I do pick up a couple of alternate coin, altcoins every once in a while. Like I picked up some Uniswap and Dash and Cardano and some other ones, just a handful, just to make sure that you're in the game, because you don't know. Like there was a time when I tried to buy Bitcoin at $18. I was going to buy two of them for $18 a piece, and the only reason why I wanted them is so I could learn to throw them around. I was just going to, I didn't even want them. I was just wanting to learn how to use them, and figured, okay, for $40, that's cheap lesson to learn. And so I tried buying them, and I never did get those Bitcoins at $18. And it's probably a good thing that I didn't, because shortly after I tried to do that, my computer crashed and I wasn't able to get it to work again. So I probably would have lost my Bitcoin anyway. But that would have been a good story to have. So, and I have lost cryptocurrencies. I mean, I lost the last 12 digits to an Ethereum wallet about, 2 years ago or so. And I can see the coins in there, and I don't go back and look at it now because it's too depressing. There's a bunch of money in there now, and I just simply cannot get to it. So yeah, definitely secure your keys. If you are going to get into cryptocurrencies, learn to secure your keys. It is by far the most important thing. If you do not hold those keys, you do not own that crypto. So, and you will lose it like I did. Excuse me. Sorry, talking with my mouth full. And then you also have to think, if you are going to go with a third party, to hold your cryptocurrencies, like Coinbase or something like that. I use Coinbase, but I don't have all my cryptos with Coinbase. I use Coinbase. I use Abra because, like we were talking about, getting an interest on your cryptos. I use Abra to get a little bit of an interest rate on my cryptocurrencies. And I don't know if you should trust Abra or not. I've been using it for a couple of years. I do trust Coinbase for the most part. They are a third party, so you're taking your risk. And then I have like a private Litecoin wallet, that's separate from. It's not a third party, is basically what it is. So I do hold the private keys to a Litecoin wallet, and I keep some Litecoin in that as well. So I don't keep everything in the same place, because you're taking your risk by doing that. And I've already lost a chunk of it, so I'm not about ready to do that again. And you know what's sad about, like, that's the thing I was going to tell you, the exchange. I was with Cryptsy was the name of Cryptsy.com was the name of and you go look it up. They were basically a fraudulent exchange, but I was new to the game. I mean, this was like right when Dogecoin came out. And in fact, I had like well over 100,000 Doge with Cryptsy at the time that they finally shut down, and I wasn't able to log in again. And they kept all my cryptos, and so yeah, I missed out on a lot of crypto opportunities. I mean, big time. So it is very important to understand who it is that you are working with, that you have it secured, and that you don't have it all in one place. I mean, those things are really important to know and to deal with. So yeah, I mean, you got to do your own research for sure. I mean, when I first got into crypto, there was hardly anybody on the internet talking about them, or like, not like now. Like now, there's like millions of people who talk about cryptocurrencies, and people who are a hell of a lot smarter than I ever could have imagined them being on it. But when I first started, there was no lessons or anything like that. So, like, even just trying to like start a Coinbase account was really confusing to me. Like, I didn't understand what I was doing, and linking it up with my bank account and making the purchase, and like everything that went with it was so confusing to me. But the more you do it and you start getting involved, and it doesn't seem so confusing anymore. But like now, it's just like everybody's into it. You can ask a million questions, and it's all over the place. We have 2 small lumber stores left still in holding on here where I live in Arizona. Yeah. Hey, right on. Thank you for the $2, Osama. I really appreciate that. Congrats on the successful 2021. 150,000 subs by 2022. Man, that would be so awesome to get to 100,000 subs. I mean, I'm at 83,000 now, so we're getting there. What do you think of silver in the long run? 5, 10, 20 years. Okay. Silver. I'm going to talk about silver, and then I got to go back to work. Okay, so when it comes to silver, this is let me tell you my story about silver. Okay, I remember when it was about 2009, 2010. The great financial crisis was ripping and roaring through. Recessions were kicking in, and I had just had a kid like 2 years earlier. So I had this 2-year-old son, and anytime anybody had ever given me any money, I had stuffed it in an envelope and basically held on to it. Well, by 2010, I was in a bad spot. Like, I had no more cash. I had sold off all my stuff, but I still had this envelope of thousands of dollars that I had stashed for my kid, that anytime anybody had given me, and so I didn't spend it. I knew I needed to do something with this money before, or else I was going to end up spending it on house payments. I just knew I needed to do something with it. So I went to my buddy Curtis, who I thought was pretty well informed at the time. And I said, hey man, what do I do with this money? Do I put it in like a savings account or some kind of account for my kid, like a bank account? And he says, if it was my kid and that was my money, or his money that I was working with, he said, I would be putting it into silver. And now I had no idea. Like, I was like, silver, like, why silver? I don't get it. And he just basically had one thing to say: if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And I didn't understand what the hell that was supposed to mean, But I started doing a little bit of research into silver and trying to figure out why it was that I should be buying silver. And I kept landing on these like sites that were trying to like sell you some rare coin for a premium or something like that. And it was just so frustrating trying to navigate through this like, how do I go to a bullion dealer? Do I go, like, how do I buy this stuff? And finally, I went down to the coin dealer one day and I just bought a single ounce of silver. I just bought a bullion. It was just a generic round. And man, once you have it in your hand, and you feel the weight of it and you feel the realness and you think about the effort and energy and time and the history of silver, and all of a sudden it starts kind of clicking for you and making sense that this is not a third party claim. This is something that you own. It's in your hand and you get to defend it and you get to make the choices of it. I was kind of hooked after that. So I started buying a lot of silver. Over the course of the next year, I pretty much had transferred all that cash that I had saved for my son into silver bullion. And man, when it hit $50 an ounce in 2011, I thought, man, I am the smartest person in the world. Everybody should have been listening to me. All my friends and family, they just don't know. They should have been paying attention to what I was doing. And in 2011, at $50 an ounce, I didn't sell any. And it hit $30 an ounce and I didn't sell any, and it was down to $25 an ounce and I didn't sell any, and then it was down into the teens and I still hadn't sold any, and now I had less money in silver than I had in cash before I started. Now I was really frustrated. After that, I really started pumping into the research to figure out what was going on. Why is the silver so down? I mean, it was supposed to carry me, it was supposed to be a hyperinflation scenario. I was going to use my silver to buy houses and stuff, but yet now I have less money than I started with. What's going on here? That's when I started learning about the paper derivatives and, the manipulations and stuff that went into it. And my frustration actually kind of reversed into a bit of gratefulness, thinking, holy moly, I still have a chance to buy cheap silver. And so that's what I did. I started adding into my stash. And I started lowering my average and started increasing the amount of bullion I had on hand. And I tell you, there came a time in my life where I was really broke and I didn't have any means, no credit, no available anything. And my car was broken down and I didn't have any way of getting a ride to work. And I called up my buddy and I said, hey man, you still selling that Tahoe? And he says, yeah, I sure am. I said, will you take silver? And he says, you know it. I said, will you drive it up to the house? I said, I'll be up there in a few minutes. He came up, I opened up an ammo can, I pulled out 165 ounces of silver, and he signed a title over to me. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I will always look at silver as my insurance policy. I don't intend to get rich off of it. It's something that is there. It's not a third-party claim. It is yours, and it's your choice to do with it. That's what I'm choosing to do with it. So silver is not an investment to me. I don't plan on making a bunch of money off of it. I hold silver as my safety net, and that's all it will ever be to me. Now, not saying that if silver does run up to $150 or $200 an ounce or something like that, that I wouldn't sell out. I mean, I love silver with all my heart, but like we said before, I ain't married to it. So yeah, I would sell out at, a couple $100 an ounce or something like that. I would certainly unload a bunch of it. Thank you for the $5, Adriana. So beautiful, Adriana. Metals suck. Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of do. But you gotta know why you're buying it. And I mean, if you're buying it to try and make a bunch of money off of it, well, that's the reason why I bought it, and now I don't. Like, I mean, I learned my lesson from it when I didn't sell it, in 2011. Alrighty, guys. I need to go back to work. I would love to just sit out here and talk with you guys forever, but I can't. You don't buy silver to make money. I don't. I do it so I can sleep at night. That's why I buy it. Would you call gold an insurance? Oops, what was that? Would you call gold an insurance policy for the last decade? Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of people really want to look at gold and silver as some kind of savior to their life or something like that. Like it's going to carry them, into these riches that are, or these overwhelming riches or something like that. I don't know, what year is it now? 2021, 2022, and I've been buying since 2010 and still waiting for that time to happen. I'm not waiting for that anymore. There's other places that you can make money. silver is an excellent place to be. It's an excellent, especially if you don't have anything and you're looking to try and save. Start saving in silver bullion. Go down to the local dealer and buy up a one piece. It's not that expensive, you know. I mean, once that $30 is gone, you don't think about it anymore. But you'll be able to pull that silver bullion out occasionally, and you'll think, man, I'm glad I did this. Alrighty, guys. I got to go back to work. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know. Thank you, everybody, for the super chat, and thank you for all the support, you know, especially with this event coming up. I'm excited about it, and I'm nervous, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm looking forward to meeting Ron Paul and G. Edward Griffin and Robert Kiyosaki and Mark Moss and Chris Cole, Lynette Zhang and Lynn Alden and everybody else who's going to be there. I mean, these are like, this is it, right? I mean, this is, all right. Love you guys.